Hey guys, how's it going? This is the bald metal nerd coming at you with the final video in my series about Skid Row's albums, and I'm going to be talking about Subhuman Race in this in this video. It was released in 1995, and you're asking yourself, why is this the last one he's going to talk about Skid Row? They have other albums. I'll get to that more or less at the end of the video. Now, as you guys may or may not be aware of, this was Skid Row's final album with Sebastian Bach before, he became a reality TV star and all that. Of course, in 95, I think the only reality TV on was Cops, but it's neither here nor there. Now, it was written and recorded during a time of great internal strife within the band. It's also, by far, their heaviest album, and in my opinion, it's a great album. Now let's go ahead and get into the songs. The first song is called My Enemy. It's a very heavy, grinding song. Great riffs and structure. It's awesome. Next one, Fire Sign. It's a very soulful song with great melodies and an awesome heavy chorus. Next up, you have Bonehead. It's a great, fast, heavy song. Following that, Beat Yourself Blind. It's a great, mid-paced, heavy song with a great groove. Now, after that, Eileen. It's a very atmospheric track with a variety of textures and feels. It's very unique and well done track. They try to make some creepy atmosphere. It's just really cool. After that, you've got Remains to Be Seen. It's a mid-paced song, fairly heavy, but it's not one of my personal favorites. It does have some great moments in it, but it is an uneven song. Next up, you have the title track, Subhuman Race. It's a high-octane, fast, heavy song. After that, you've got Frozen, which is another atmospheric track with some great heavy passages. After that, you have Into Another, which is just an okay semi-ballad. After that, you've got Face Against My Soul. It's a very heavy track with a variety of tempos. After that, you've got Medicine Jar. Love that song. It's a fast, heavy song with great riffs. Following that up, you've got Breaking Down. It's an okay ballad. It's probably the weakest song on the albums, but by no means is it a bad song. Now, a little interesting fact about this song is that it appeared on the soundtrack for the 95 Christopher Walken film, The Prophecy. Christopher Walken played an archangel in that joke. And Aragorn, Viggo Mortensen from Lord of the Rings, played Satan. Good stuff. Only could have happened in the 90s, I guess. I have no idea if any of their other songs ever appeared on any soundtracks or used in any way outside of their albums or like EPs, and by that I mean Skid Row's. Next one is called Iron Will. It's their closing track on this. It's very heavy with a wide variety of tempos. Now, on this album, the band progressed even further and modernized their sound, a fair amount. They even have a few elements of alternative metal on this thing. Since by 95, obviously, grunge and alternative was dominating rock music, but they were still metal, and they kept the same feel they had since the very beginning. Overall, I think it's a great album. I personally give it a 90 out of 100. It has awesome performances and the best production of any of their albums. Now, say what you will about Bob Rock, but he does seem to know how to get good sound out of a band, or at least he did in the late 80s to mid-90s. After listening to this album, I did a little bit of research about it, since it was the last album they did with Sebastian Bach. I think Bach split from the band due to rock star-sized ego clashes. But, hardly surprising. It is a shame that, that old cliche ripped apart an excellent band. Obviously, it didn't sell as well as their first two albums, considering that in the mid-90s, Skid Row would have definitely been considered uncool by the masses, but it did achieve gold status. I also find it interesting that they released their heaviest album when the band was having a huge amount of internal strife. seems like a lot of bands make their best music when things are less than ideal in their lives. There are countless examples of this in rock and metal. It seems that bands lose their way when things are going good, and by that I mean they reach a very high level of success, get rich, and lose inspiration. Case in point, Metallica. That's neither here nor there. But anyway, but maybe that'll happen less often now since recorded music sales aren't what they used to be. It's not as easy to become a rich rock star as it used to be. Of course, it wasn't easy then. It was like winning the lottery, but the pot's smaller now, so that lottery isn't what it was. You know, I also read a quote from a 2006 interview with Rachel Bolan stating, and this is a quote, "That record was a nightmare. Internally, the band had fallen apart, but we were forced to go in and do another record, and it was a nightmare with the recording, writing, and producing. We worked with someone we had not worked with before after being so successful with their former producer, and we were used to the way he did things. I am not slighting Bob Rock at all. He is a genius producer, but it was bad timing. I did not have the greatest time. It was nobody's fault. It's just the way things were. Also, the record absolutely sucks." That's the end of the quote. Obviously, I strongly disagree with that sentiment about this album. And I would apply that feeling to some of their work that followed this. It just goes to show how an artist looking back at a less than pleasant time of their career can color their perception of the work they produced at the time and how differently fans can react to it. Now, I'm actually going to conclude this review by talking about Skid Row post Sebastian Bach as well as Bach's own solo work. Nothing after Subhuman Race that Skid Row produced is worth listening to, in my opinion. Now, not all of the music they released afterward is bad or anything. In fact, they have a few good songs here and there, but overall, it's just highly average music. I had actually listened to these albums and had planned on reviewing them, but after thinking about it, I realized I had never listened to any of them prior to doing the reviews, and I don't care if I ever hear those albums ever again in my life. Bach's solo work is better than what the bands without him did, but they aren't as good as when he was with the band. They captured that elusive lightning in a bottle with their original lineup, and when they changed that formula, they just lost the magic. Now that I'm done talking about Skid Row, it's time for me to give you some clues as to the next band's albums I'm going to review. Now, before I get into another band, I'm going to probably post a few videos about different topics that relate to music. But to get back to the next band that I'm going to do, like many other metal fans who are my age, this next band is the reason I got into heavier metal in the first place. And they are one of the most famous metal bands ever, and they had their creative peak in the 80s, and they're still alive and kicking. This won't be hard to figure out, folks. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you next time.